Rudyard Lynch, the WhatIfAltHist creator, has gone dark. He has not been seen for more than 4 months. What happened to WhatIfAltHist? WhatIfAltHist was founded as a YouTube channel in 2013 when Rudyard Lynch, who was an extremely young man at the time, was taking on alternate historical events. So he would say, what if an alternative person won this war or that? Or how might it have happened if the Byzantine Empire persisted? And many of those interesting things that he was doing as a juvenile. Ultimately, that turned into things that were more in line with anthropology, sex relations, psychology, and it came to be political predictions, which ultimately led to him predicting a civil war would occur in the year 2025, and he had needed to back off of that prediction eventually, which might be part of the reason for his recent disappearance.
When I started this channel when I was 13, and I started largely out of boredom, and we made a lot of videos, or I made videos about what if the South won World War II and what if the Nazis won the Civil War. And after 7 years of alternate history, I gradually morphed into different kinds of content. And now I make more anthropology and history and philosophy and that kind of content. You could say that the shared idea of all of it is human nature and trying to understand how human nature operates across various contexts. For different eras of history that have parallels to ours. And so I compared them and I looked at a variety of historic cycles for when revolutions happen. And from adding all of that together, I predicted America would have a civil war comparable to like the English Civil War, the American Civil War, or the French Revolution, and the fall of the Roman Republic, to say the fourth one. And these are consistent threads we see pop up again and again over history.
In 2023 and 2024, Rudyard Lynch repeatedly argued that the U.S. was moving toward a major internal political crisis, and he predicted large numbers of politically motivated passing away would have happened by late 2025. But in this year, 2025, he publicly acknowledged that his specific prediction, 1,000 politically motivated passings by April, had failed. He did that on the Dad Saves America podcast, which really was one of his most recent large appearances. However, that led to a really deep and long silence from the internet, which ultimately led me to questions as to whether he is supporting himself. Is he okay? And it led me deeper into investigating his very public meltdown, which had occurred previously. In 2025, a bizarre live stream came up, and it was multiple hours of Rudyard Lynch telling deep and very personal stories, which led his followers and subscribers to question whether he was mentally fit. Rudyard uploaded a stream for hours of highly unusual material that was subsequently deleted. Archive channels preserved portions of it, with one describing about roughly 10 hours of erratic or manic-seeming content before it was ultimately removed. Many people question whether this was a mania or a psychosis or drug-induced behavior. I personally, as a therapist of more than 13 years, know that I cannot make those types of diagnoses over the internet, but he later quipped that it was just sort of a joke and that he was just having some fun recording a large live stream. However, he, as a man with hundreds of thousands of followers at that time, must have known that this could have been a consequential mistake. In 2025, he resumed serious long-form appearances, and whatever happened during that period did not permanently remove him from public life. In 2025, he went back to doing long-form content, especially on his History 102 channel, where he and a co-host sort of reviewed the actual historical events that he felt were important. In late 2025, Rudyard still continues to argue that our culture was extremely sick, and he used a lot about the mouse utopia hypothesis and experimentation, as well as analyzing the difference between nihilism and our current culture, which are very slim, along with influencing and integrating a little bit of his Christian worldview into his content. These are all welcomed changes, and most of his subscribers remain loyal despite going extremely different from what his original alternative history channel was about. In February 5th of 2026, Rudyard Lynch appears on Dad Saves America. In this visit, he was revisiting his Civil War forecast, his prediction. The hook was that this conflict was running later than he predicted, and he used the passing of Charlie Kirk as some evidence that we were on our way to a worsening civil conflict. And he abandoned his underlying thesis only in part. That appearance drew more than 280,000 views, and so he publicly addressed the fact that his Civil War prediction had not come true.
It has been about a year and a half, I think roughly, since you were last here, and you were all over the internet at the time proclaiming the pending Civil War. Now, if you look on the news and obsess about Minnesota, one could say maybe you were a little early. But what's your take? Are we in a Civil War now? Was that prediction maybe a little too hyperbolic? How have you shifted in your thinking on this the American Civil War circumstances?
I stand by my older prediction, and I think it's still going to happen. I'm not going to give out a date soon because I've been wrong the previous time. But all of the variables that I said, I still stand by because the situation has not fundamentally changed.
2 weeks after his Dad Saves America appearance, Rudyard Lynch recorded his last piece of content that is up on the internet to date. That was around April 24th of 2026, and Lynch and Austin Padgett, his co-host, released a 2-hour, 24-minute episode on the Prussian Empire. This podcast was described as a weekly one, and there was no expectation that all of a sudden this would go dark. After April 2026, there is a noticeable public content gap. This is where the current story gets interesting. I can verify content went through April of that month of that year, but it is impossible to find any comparable WhatIfAltHist, History 102, or any other output over the last 4 months. And that, of course, leads us all to conjecture about what happened to WhatIfAltHist. Rudyard Lynch has gone silent for 4 months. And while he may have alternative sources of income, while he may have friends and supporters and family that are giving him the ability to maintain himself, with his public meltdown, what many called a manic episode, it is normal and understandable to be concerned for our guy Rudyard. And especially after he makes a very public Civil War prediction that does not ultimately come true. He admits the claim was not veracious 2 weeks before his last episode of the History 102 podcast, and so many have conjectured Rudyard Lynch might not be well. I'm not willing to go that far. I pray that our guy is well. I pray that some of his political predictions, while they didn't come true, did not ultimately scare him out of public life. I pray that he's actually taking a break and what would probably have been some considerable income from the channel and using it to try to pursue God and maybe, perhaps, a different vision for what God has in store for him in his life. Rudyard Lynch's ideas have not necessarily disappeared. There are a great many of his previous podcast episodes and musings which are recorded and still in circulation, which makes it seem like his presence is still there and available for the viewer. However, the absence of new content is concerning, especially for those of us who actually appreciate and enjoy his content, trending in a direction that I think spoke to the cultural moment and was addressing some of the deep and abiding difficulties that the modern man faces. So the entire story arc goes like this. A young man creates an alternative history channel. Following that, he's increasingly ambitious in the civilizational theory department, and then he has major growth in the culture war and male-female commentary. He continues to make apocalyptic predictions, and his bizarre public episode in 2025 ends up leaving him with a lot of public questions about his well-being. He returns to respectable long-form podcasts and admits that his prediction of a civil war was premature. He continues producing into the spring of this year, then everything goes dark. The contradiction that people find in Rudyard is he can be unusually well read, but he extrapolates these huge demographic and psychological predictions which make him subject to criticism. I hope that that criticism is not the reason why our guy is out of public life. Let's, anyone who's watching this video, and if you're a Rudyard Lynch fan, let's pray for his well-being. And comment in the comment section, do you have any insight? Do you have him on any other social media platform or a Discord channel or anything where you can give us some insight and ideas about where he went, whether he's well or not, and is he planning to return? And if you would like to return to this channel where this Midwestern midwit attempts to make sense of the psychological moment we're in, I would love your support. Thanks for watching.